He ruled the underworld with an iron fist. She carried his children in silence for 4 years. When twin secrets surface in a city that never forgets, a Korean mafia heir faces the one thing his empire can't control: fatherhood. 2 4-year-olds. One impossible truth. A love he abandoned. A legacy he never knew existed. This is the story of the man who had everything, except the family he left behind. What happens when the most dangerous man in the city discovers his greatest weakness has his own eyes? Watch until the end, because some secrets don't just change lives. They end empires. Welcome back to another Afro-Korean story that will stay with you long after it ends. Before we dive in, please help us reach 2,000 subscribers. Your support means everything. Now, let's begin this unforgettable journey together. The rain fell like judgment over the city. Jae-won stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse, watching the streets below blur into rivers of neon and shadow. At 29, he had built an empire his father only dreamed of. Steel, silence, and fear woven so tightly that even the police whispered his name in hallways they thought were safe. He didn't need to pull triggers. His silence did the killing. 4 years ago, he had walked away from the only softness he'd ever known. Minseo. Her name still tasted like regret on his tongue. She had been light in a world that worshipped darkness. African roots, American fire, eyes that saw through the monster he pretended to be. But the family had demanded a choice. Love or legacy? He chose wrong. His phone buzzed. A message from his underboss. Movement detected at the old safe house. Cameras caught something. Jae-won's jaw tightened. That safe house had been abandoned for years, a relic from when his father ran things with fists instead of fear. He typed back, "Send the footage." 30 seconds later, his world stopped breathing. On the grainy security feed, 2 small figures moved through the shadows. Children, no older than 4. A boy and a girl holding hands like the world outside didn't exist. Their faces were partially hidden, but something about the way the boy tilted his head, sharp, cautious, calculating even at that age, made Jae-won's blood turn cold. He knew that expression. He wore it every day. "Get the car," he said into the phone, his voice low and lethal. Now. The drive across the city felt longer than any negotiation, any standoff. His bodyguards flanked the vehicle in silence, trained never to ask questions. But Jae-won saw their eyes flicker to him in the rearview mirror. They'd never seen him like this. Unsteady. Human. The safe house loomed ahead, a forgotten building in a neighborhood where people knew better than to remember faces. Jae-won stepped out into the rain, his coat billowing like a shadow given form. His hand rested near his concealed weapon, but his heart was the thing that felt most dangerous. Inside, the air smelled of dust and time. And then he heard it. Laughter. Soft, innocent, impossible. He followed the sound to what used to be a storage room. The door was cracked open. Through the gap, he saw them. 2 children sat on the floor, surrounded by old blankets someone had carefully arranged into a nest. The girl had tight curls framing her face, deep brown skin glowing even in the dim light. The boy's features were sharper, his eyes already too aware for someone so young. Korean, African, both. His breath caught. The girl looked up first. Her eyes, dark, endless, familiar in a way that made his chest ache, locked onto his. She didn't scream. Didn't run. "Mama said you might come," she whispered. The boy stood, positioning himself slightly in front of his sister. Protective, brave, foolish. "Who are you?" the boy asked, his small voice carrying an edge Jae-won recognized from his own childhood. Jae-won knelt slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. It felt foreign. Predators didn't kneel. "What are your names?" His voice came out rougher than intended. "Ji-hoo," the boy said carefully. "And this is Jia." "Ji-hoo, Jia." names that carried his family's legacy in their very syllables. "Where is your mother?" The question scraped out of him. Gia's lower lip trembled. "She's sick. Really sick. We came here because she said. She said if anything happened, someone good would find us here." Someone good. The words were a knife between his ribs. He had never been good. He had built his throne on the bones of men who thought they were untouchable. He had walked away from love because power was easier than vulnerability. But these children looked at him like he could still be salvation. "I'm taking you somewhere safe," he said, standing. His bodyguards appeared in the doorway, hands near their weapons, eyes scanning for threats. Jihu stepped back, pulling his sister closer. "We don't go with strangers." Smart kid. Terrifying kid. "I'm not a stranger," Jaewon said quietly. And then, because the truth was a bullet he couldn't dodge anymore, "I'm your father." The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun that had already fired. Jia's eyes widened. Jihu's narrowed. "Mama said our father was a king," Jihu said slowly, studying Jaewon's face with an intensity that would have made grown men uncomfortable. "But kings don't abandon their families." The accusation was a child's honesty. It destroyed him more efficiently than any rival ever had. "You're right," Jaewon said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I wasn't a king. I was a coward." Jihu blinked. Adults didn't admit weakness, not in his limited experience. "But I'm here now," Jaewon continued, extending his hand. "And I'm going to fix this." "You can't fix everything," Jia said softly, her small hand slipping into his. Her touch was warm, trusting, undeserved. "I can try," he said. And for the first time in 4 years, Jaewon felt something more dangerous than fear. He felt hope. The penthouse had never held children before. Jaewon watched from the kitchen as Jihu explored the space with the caution of a soldier entering enemy territory. Every movement calculated, every glance assessing exits, threats, advantages. The boy was 4 years old and already thinking like someone who had learned too young that the world wasn't safe. Jia stayed closer to Jaewon, her small hand occasionally brushing his leg as if to confirm he was still real. She had her mother's warmth. Her trust was a weight heavier than any crown. "This is where you live?" Jihu asked, running his fingers along the marble countertop. "It's cold." "It serves its purpose," Jaewon replied. "Does it make you happy?" The question was so direct, so achingly innocent, that Jaewon forgot how to answer. Happiness wasn't a metric he measured. Power, control, fear. These were the currencies he understood. "I don't think about happiness," he said finally. Jihu looked at him with eyes too old for his face. "Mama said that's the saddest way to live." Minseo's voice in a child's mouth. It felt like haunting. Jaewon's phone buzzed. His underboss. "Situation developing. The Chen family is asking questions about your sudden disappearance. They sense weakness." Weakness. He glanced at the twins. Jia had found a spot by the window, pressing her forehead against the glass, watching the city lights blur through the rain. Jihu stood near the bookshelf, studying titles he couldn't yet read, but somehow understanding they represented power. These children were the greatest vulnerability he'd ever possessed, and the greatest strength he'd never known he needed. "Tell Chen I'm handling family business," Jaewon typed back. "They'll understand the importance of legacy." The word felt different now. Legacy wasn't just empire, it was the small hand that trusted his. The sharp eyes that challenged his every move. "Are you hungry?" he asked, realizing he had no idea how to care for children. Jia turned from the window. "Mama always made us juk when it rained. Rice porridge, comfort food." Something Minseo would have learned from him, from his culture, from the brief time when they had been something other than a tragedy waiting to happen. "I can do that," he said, moving to the kitchen with the same precision he applied to everything. Cooking was chemistry, following steps, control. But Jihu appeared at his elbow, watching. "She put love in it," That's what made it good. Love isn't an ingredient. Maybe that's why you're sad. The observation was a scalpel, precise and devastating. Jaewon's hands stilled over the pot. Your mother, how sick is she? Jia's voice came soft from across the room. The doctors said her body is fighting something it can't win against. She stopped being able to walk last month, then talking got hard. Then. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Jaewon's world had survived bullets, betrayals, and blood. But this? The quiet ending of the only person who had ever truly seen him? This was the violence he couldn't orchestrate away. Where is she now? His voice was granite, trying not to crack. Sacred Heart Hospital, Ji-hoo said. Room 447, but she made us promise not to stay. She said hospitals are where hope goes to die slowly, and we needed to live somewhere hope still exists. So she had sent them to a safe house, to a place connected to him. Even dying, Minseo had been steering them toward the truth. Jaewon pulled out his phone. 3 calls. First to his personal physician. Second to the hospital administrator who owed him favors written in blood. Third to his head of security. I need Sacred Heart Hospital's 4th floor cleared. Room 447 gets private medical staff, equipment, whatever is required. Cost is irrelevant. Discretion is mandatory. Boss, that kind of movement will draw attention. Then draw it, Jaewon said coldly, and make sure anyone watching understands that room is under my protection. Completely. He ended the call and found both children staring at him. You're helping Mama? Jia's voice trembled with something fragile and devastating. I should have helped her 4 years ago. But you're helping now, she whispered. That's what Mama said matters, not what was, what is. The juk was ready. Jaewon served it in bowls too expensive for comfort food, and they ate together at a table built for business negotiations, not family dinners. It was the most important meal of his life. Afterward, Ji-hoo approached him with the same calculated caution he'd shown all evening. If you're really our father, prove it. How? Tell us something true, something that costs you to say. Jaewon looked at this child, his son, and saw the negotiator he would become. The leader. The threat. The hope. I loved your mother more than power, he said quietly. And when I chose power anyway, I killed the best part of myself. I've spent 4 years building an empire on the grave of who I could have been. And now you're here, and I don't know if I'm the father you deserve or just another monster in expensive clothes. Silence. Then Ji-hoo nodded once. Okay. Monsters don't admit what they are. They just are. The boy's hand, impossibly small, impossibly brave, reached out and took Jaewon's. You admitted it. That means you can still choose different. In that moment, Jaewon understood. His empire had made him feared. These children were teaching him how to be human. The hospital called at 2 a.m. Jaewon was already awake, watching the twins sleep in the guest room he'd converted with a speed that would have impressed his enemies. Jia curled into a tight ball, seeking warmth even in dreams. Ji-hoo slept on his back, hands fisted, ready to fight even unconscious. His phone lit up the darkness. Dr. Morrison, the physician he'd assigned to Minseo's care. She's asking for you. 3 words that carried the weight of 4 years. Jaewon looked at the sleeping children. Leaving them felt wrong, but so did ignoring their mother's summons. He called his most trusted guard. Watch them. If they wake, tell them I'll be back before sunrise. If anyone comes near this penthouse who isn't on the approved list, they disappear. I know the protocol, boss. Jaewon arrived at Sacred Heart as the city held its breath between night and morning. The 4th floor had been transformed. Private security at every access point, medical equipment that most hospitals couldn't afford, silence that money and fear had purchased. Room 447's door was slightly open. He stood outside for a full minute, this man who had never hesitated before a kill, frozen by the prospect of facing the woman he'd destroyed. I can hear you breathing out there, Jaewon. Her voice, weaker than memory, but still carrying that undercurrent of strength that had first captivated him. He entered. Minseo lay in a bed surrounded by machines that beeped soft measurements of a life winding down. She had always been beautiful. Deep brown skin, eyes that held entire universes, presence that commanded rooms without effort. Illness had stolen her body's strength, but not her spirit's fire. You found them, she said. Not a question. You made sure I would. A faint smile. I always knew you were smarter than you pretended to be. Jaewon moved closer, each step feeling like walking through memory and regret. Why didn't you tell me? 4 years, Minseo. 4 years I could have... Could have what? Her eyes flashed with the old defiance. You chose your empire. You walked away. What was I supposed to do? Show up with babies and beg the crime lord to play house? Yes. The word came out raw. You would have resented me, she said softly. Resented them. The great Jaewon, chained to domesticity by obligation. I loved you too much to watch you hate the best parts of us. So you raised them alone, sick, struggling. I raised them with love. She coughed, and Jaewon reached for water without thinking. Old instincts. They know joy, Jaewon. They know safety. They know their mother would burn down the world to protect them. That's more than empire. He helped her drink, his hands steadier than his heart. The twins, she continued. They're everything we could have been if we'd been braver. Jihu has your mind. Scary smart, that one. Already figuring out how the world works, how to survive it. Jia has my heart. She feels everything so deeply it terrifies me. They're perfect. They're ours. Minseo's hand found his, her grip weak but intentional. And now I'm dying, and you're all they have left. Don't. The word broke. Don't say that like it's inevitable. Everything is inevitable, baby. We just pretend otherwise. Her eyes glistened. I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't make them choose between love and power. Don't do to them what the world did to us. She squeezed his hand with what little strength remained. Teach Jihu that being smart doesn't mean being cold. Teach Jia that feeling deeply doesn't make you weak. Be the father I told them existed even when I wasn't sure you could be. Tears he'd forgotten how to cry burned behind his eyes. I don't know how to be what they need. Neither did I. Minseo smiled, and for a moment she was 23 again, laughing in his arms, believing love could conquer legacy. But I learned. You will too. You're not as broken as you think, Jaewon. You're just scared. I'm terrified. Good. She brought his hand to her lips, kissed it once. Fear means you care. Care means you're still human. Hold on to that. They sat in silence, two people who had loved each other terribly and truly, watching machines measure the space between heartbeats. When I'm gone, Minseo whispered, tell them their mother's last thought was of them laughing. Not of pain. Not of endings. Just joy. You're not gone yet. But I will be soon. She looked at him with eyes that had always seen too much. Promise me you'll love them louder than you loved your empire. Promise me they'll never doubt they matter more than power. Jaewon knelt beside her bed, this king of underworld kingdoms, brought low by love and loss. I promise. Then I can rest. She closed her eyes. The machines continued their steady rhythm, and Jaewon stayed, holding the hand of the only woman who had ever made him want to be someone different, watching sunrise paint the hospital room in shades of ending and beginning. His phone buzzed. A text from his guard. The boy woke up, asked where you were, told him you'd be back soon. He said, fathers keep promises, then went back to sleep. Fathers keep promises. Jaewon looked at Minseo, peaceful in whatever dreams still remained to her. He stood. He had an empire to dismantle and a family to build. The choice had never been clearer. The call came 3 days later. just as dawn bled pink across the city skyline. Minseo was gone. Jaewon received the news standing in his kitchen, watching Jihoo and Jia eat breakfast at the counter. Pancakes. Something he'd learned to make from a YouTube video at 3 a.m. because Jia had mentioned she missed them. The twins didn't know yet. They were laughing about something small and beautiful, the way children do when the world hasn't broken them. He would have to tell them their mother was never coming home. The phone trembled in his hand before he set it down with the careful control of a man who had learned early that showing emotion was showing weakness. But his children, God, his children, they looked up at him with eyes that knew something had shifted. "What's wrong?" Jihoo asked, fork suspended midair. That constant vigilance, always reading the room, always prepared for disaster. Jaewon crossed to them slowly, knelt down so he was at their level, the way he'd started doing. Eye to eye. Human to human. "Your mother." His voice caught. He cleared it, tried again. "She's not in pain anymore." Jia's face crumpled immediately, understanding arriving before words could soften it. Jihoo went very still, very quiet, shock presenting as control, a mirror of Jaewon himself. "She's dead," Jihoo said flatly. Not a question. A confirmation of what he'd probably known was coming but hoped against anyway. "Yes." Jia's sob broke the word in half. She launched herself at Jaewon, small arms wrapping around his neck with desperate strength. He caught her instinctively, holding her as she shook with grief too big for her small body. Jihoo didn't move, just stared at his half-eaten pancakes like they held answers. "It's okay to cry," Jaewon told him quietly, still holding Jia as she soaked his shirt with tears. "Crying doesn't fix anything." The boy's voice was ice over breaking glass. "No, but it helps you carry what can't be fixed." Jihoo's jaw clenched. "You didn't cry when you found out." "I cried alone, in the car, where no one could see." Jaewon met his son's eyes. "But maybe that was wrong. Maybe we should cry together." Something in Jihoo's careful armor cracked. His lower lip quivered once before he buried his face in his hands, shoulders shaking with the kind of grief that has no sound, only motion. Jaewon gathered him close too, this boy who was trying so hard to be strong, and held both of his children as they mourned the mother who had loved them fiercely and alone. Outside, the city woke up to business as usual. Inside, a crime lord learned what it meant to be a father. The funeral was private, intimate. Everything Minseo had been, vibrant, warm, unforgettable, distilled into a ceremony that held more love than spectacle. Jaewon had wanted to give her something magnificent, a cathedral, an orchestra. The kind of send-off that announced importance to a city built on status. But Jihoo had looked at him with those two knowing eyes and said, "Mama didn't like loud things. She liked real things." So they kept it small. A garden chapel, flowers in shades of sunset, music that swayed like memory. People who had actually known Minseo, not just known of her connection to Jaewon's world. The twins sat on either side of him in the front row, dressed in black that made them look even smaller. Jia held his hand so tightly her knuckles went pale. Jihoo stared straight ahead, refusing to blink, as if blinking meant accepting reality. The pastor spoke about love that transcended circumstance, about a woman who had raised children with grace under impossible conditions, about legacy measured not in power or wealth, but in the hearts shaped by gentle hands. Jaewon barely heard the words. He was too busy watching his children try to be brave. After the service, as people offered condolences that felt like static noise, Jaewon's underboss approached with the careful deference reserved for volcanoes that might erupt. "Boss, we need to talk about the situation." "Not now. The Chen family is making moves." "They see this." He gestured vaguely at the funeral, at the twins, at the unprecedented display of Jaewon's humanity. "As weakness. They're testing boundaries. 3 of our operations have been probed in the last 48 hours. Jaewon's eyes went cold. Let them probe. When they cross the line, we'll remind them why boundaries exist. And if they go after? The underboss's gaze flickered to the twins. Every atom in Jaewon's body went to ice. If anyone even thinks about touching my children, they won't disappear quietly. They'll disappear screaming, and the city will hear it as a lesson. The underboss nodded once, satisfied with the return of the monster he understood. But then Jia appeared at Jaewon's side, slipping her small hand into his, and the monster evaporated into something softer. "Can we go home now?" she asked quietly. "I'm tired." Home. She'd called his penthouse home. "Yeah, baby, we can go home." That night, after the twins had finally cried themselves to sleep in their shared room, they'd refused to be separated. Jaewon sat in his office surrounded by reports of Chen family movements, territory disputes, and a dozen small fires that needed his attention. He ignored all of it. Instead, he opened his laptop and searched for information he'd never needed before. How to help children grieve. Single-father resources. Raising twins alone. The search results felt like a foreign language. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But instinct, the same instinct that had kept him alive in a world that ate the weak, told him this call mattered. "Mr. Kang?" A woman's voice. Professional, cautious. "Speaking. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I was Minseo's oncologist." A pause. "I'm calling because she left something for you. A letter. She made me promise to deliver it after." After. Jaewon's throat closed. "I'll send someone to pick it up. She was very specific that I hand it to you personally, and that you read it alone." They met at an all-night diner that smelled like coffee and broken dreams. Dr. Chen was younger than he expected, with kind eyes that had probably watched too many people die. She slid a sealed envelope across the table. "She wrote this about a month ago, when she knew time was short." Dr. Chen's voice softened. "She talked about you a lot, toward the end." "What did she say?" "That you were the love of her life, and her greatest regret." The doctor stood. "But also that if anyone could rise to meet the impossible, it was you." She left him alone with the envelope. Jaewon stared at Minseo's handwriting on the front. "For when you're scared, you're failing them." His hands shook as he opened it. "Jaewon, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you're probably sitting somewhere alone, convinced you're going to destroy our children the way you think you destroyed us?" "Stop. You didn't destroy us. We destroyed ourselves by being too afraid to fight for what mattered. I should have shown up at your door with the pregnancy test and demanded you choose differently. You should have chosen differently without needing to be asked. But we were young and stupid and scared. Our children don't have to pay for that. Here's what I need you to know. Ji-hoo is going to test you constantly. He's going to push boundaries and ask impossible questions and challenge every decision you make. That's because he needs to know you won't abandon him when he's difficult. Love him loudest when he's hardest to love. Jia is going to seem easier. She'll smile and adapt and try to be perfect so you won't leave. But that smile hides so much fear. She needs you to see through it. To tell her she doesn't have to earn your love by being convenient. They're going to grieve in ways that terrify you. Let them. Grief isn't something to fix. It's something to survive together. And Jaewon, they're going to ask about your work, about your world. Don't lie. But don't glorify it either. Show them that power without purpose is just violence in expensive suits. Teach them that real strength is choosing vulnerability when armor would be easier. I loved you. I love you still. Whatever version of you exists now, reading this, wondering if you're capable of being their father, you are. Not because you're perfect, because you're trying. That's all any parent can do. Try. And when you fail, because you will, let them see you fail. Let them see you apologize. Let them see you get back up. That's the legacy worth leaving. All my love. Even now, Minseo P.S. There's a box in my apartment, under the bed. Photos, videos, letters I wrote to you but never sent. Give them to the twins when they're older. Let them see us whole, not just broken. Jaewon read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it carefully and placed it in his jacket pocket, right over his heart. Outside, the city pulsed with danger and opportunity, and 1,000 small wars he'd orchestrated or ended. But inside, in the quiet space grief had carved into his chest, something new began growing. Purpose. He pulled out his phone and called his underboss. "Clear my schedule for the next month. Boss, we're in the middle of— I don't care. Clear it. Delegate what you can't postpone. If the Chen family wants to play, let them think they're winning. We'll settle accounts later. You're really doing this. Stepping back. For them." Jaewon looked at Min Seo's letter. "I'm not stepping back. I'm stepping up." He ended the call and drove home through empty streets, carrying a dead woman's wisdom and a living chance at redemption. When he arrived, Ji-hoo was sitting in the dark living room, waiting. "Couldn't sleep?" Jaewon asked. "You weren't here. I wanted to make sure you came back." The admission cost the boy something. Jaewon saw it in the set of his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. "I'll always come back," Jaewon said, sitting beside him on the couch. "Even when I have to leave, I'll always come back." "That's what Mama said too." Ji-hoo's voice cracked, before she couldn't anymore. Jaewon pulled his son close. "Your mother didn't choose to leave you. Death chose for her. But me? I'm choosing to stay. Every single day, that's a promise. Promises break. Not this one." They sat together in the darkness, a father and son learning how to be family, while the city outside forgot them for one blessed night. Upstairs, Jia slept. And in his pocket, Min Seo's letter waited to be read again and again whenever doubt crept in. Some empires were built on fear. This one would be built on love. The first month was survival. Jaewon learned to braid hair by watching YouTube tutorials at midnight, his large hands clumsy with Jia's tight curls until she patiently guided him through it. He learned that Ji-hoo wouldn't eat anything green unless it was hidden in other food, a battle of wills that the 4-year-old won more often than not. He learned that bedtime meant stories, and stories meant voices, and voices meant becoming characters he'd never imagined himself playing. He learned that parenting was beautiful and terrifying and nothing like running an empire. No one feared you into compliance. No one disappeared when they disobeyed. You just loved them. Through tantrums and tears and moments so sweet they hurt. But the world Jaewon had built didn't stop spinning just because he'd found something more important than power. The Chen family's probing had evolved into something uglier. Territory seizures. Subtle at first, a warehouse here, a shipping route there. Testing his boundaries like predators circling wounded prey. His underboss handled most of it, but some decisions required Jaewon's direct involvement. Like tonight. He stood in his home office, video call connected to his inner circle, while 30 feet away the twins watched a movie in the living room. Their laughter drifted through the walls like a reminder of what was at stake. "They hit the port operation," his underboss reported, his face grim on the screen. "Took out 3 of our guys. Hospitalized. Not dead. But the message is clear. Chen thinks you're weak now." Let him think that. "Boss, with respect, perception is reality in our world. If you don't respond with strength—" "I didn't say we wouldn't respond." Jaewon's voice dropped into that register his people recognized as dangerous. "I said let him think I'm weak. Arrogant enemies make stupid mistakes." His head of security leaned into frame. "What's the play?" Chen wants territory? Give him some. The dockside warehouses in District 9. Silence on the call. Those warehouses were valuable. "You're surrendering ground?" his underboss asked carefully. "I'm baiting a trap." Jaewon pulled up a map on his tablet. District 9 is isolated, one access road, surrounded by properties we control. Let Chen take the warehouses. Let him move his operations in. Let him feel safe. Understanding dawned on his underboss's face. And then we close the noose. Exactly. But not yet. Let him commit resources. Let him get comfortable. We're playing a longer game now. How much longer? Jaewon glanced toward the living room where Jia's laugh bubbled up like music. As long as it takes to do this right. I'm not rushing into wars that bring violence to my door. Not anymore. He ended the call and found Ji-hoo standing in the office doorway. How long have you been there? Jaewon asked. Long enough. The boy walked in with that careful composure he wore like armor. You were talking about hurting people. No point in lying. Minseo's letter had been clear. Don't lie, but don't glorify it either. I was talking about protecting what's mine, Jaewon said. Sometimes that means making hard choices. Mama said you ran a bad business. Your mother was right. Ji-hoo climbed onto the chair across from Jaewon's desk, small but determined to be part of this conversation. Then why do you still do it? Because walking away isn't simple. I have people who depend on me, families who need the money my operations provide, enemies who would see my absence as an opportunity to take what's mine, including you and your sister. So you're trapped. The observation was too accurate for comfort. Maybe. Or maybe I just haven't figured out how to build something better yet. Jaewon leaned forward. But I'm trying. For you and Jia. I'm trying to be different. Different how? Less violence, more strategy, protecting people instead of just controlling them. He paused. Your mother asked me to teach you that power without purpose is just violence in expensive suits. I'm still learning that lesson myself. Ji-hoo studied him with those unnerving eyes. When you figure it out, will you teach me? You want to learn? I want to understand you. Mama said understanding people is how you love them right. Jaewon's chest tightened. This child, 4 years old and already containing more wisdom than most adults Jaewon knew. Then I'll teach you everything. The good, the bad, the complicated parts that don't have easy answers. Promise? Promise. Ji-hoo nodded once, satisfied, and hopped down from the chair. Jia wants you to watch the movie with us. It's about a princess and a dragon, but the dragon is actually nice and just misunderstood. Sounds familiar, Jaewon murmured, following his son out of the office. They spent the rest of the evening on the couch, Jia nestled against Jaewon's left side, Ji-hoo on his right, watching animated characters learn that monsters and heroes weren't always who they seemed. Jaewon's phone buzzed with updates from his operations, territory shifts, financial movements, the constant pulse of an empire that never slept. He silenced it. The empire could wait. His children couldn't. 3 weeks later, Chen made his first real mistake. He tried to approach the twins' preschool. Jaewon received the alert from his security team within seconds. Unknown vehicle, Chen family plates, circling the block where Ji-hoo and Jia attended a small, exclusive school Jaewon had chosen for its discretion and security measures. Every protective instinct he possessed ignited into something primal. He was at the school in 12 minutes, his own security detail flanking him like shadows. The Chen vehicle was gone by then, scared off by the visible presence of Jaewon's people, but the message was unmistakable. Chen was threatening his children. The twins were in their classroom, unaware and safe when Jaewon arrived. Through the window, he watched Jia help another student with building blocks, her natural warmth making her a favorite among her peers. Ji-hoo sat slightly apart, reading a book meant for kids twice his age, his constant need to stay ahead of danger manifesting as accelerated learning. The teacher noticed Jaewon and stepped outside. Mr. Kang? Is everything all right? There was a security concern. It's handled. His eyes never left his children. But I need to increase protection around the school. More cameras, additional personnel. I'll cover all costs. The teacher hesitated. Some of the other parents have expressed concerns about your background, the kind of attention it might bring. Jaewon turned to face her fully. Tell the concerned parents that my children are safer than theirs will ever be. And that if they have problems with my family attending this school, I'm happy to write a check large enough to build a better one elsewhere. It wasn't a threat. It was a fact delivered with the cold certainty of someone who could reshape reality with money and will. The teacher swallowed. I'll convey your commitment to security. Do that. He stayed until pickup time, watching through windows as his children learned and played and existed in a world he was determined to keep innocent as long as possible. When school ended, Jihu emerged first, immediately scanning the crowd until he found Jae-won. Relief flickered across his face before the careful mask returned. Jia ran straight to him, backpack bouncing, smile wide. You came? I'll always come, he said, scooping her up. She wrapped her arms around his neck, trusting and perfect. Jihu took his free hand. Something happened today. Something bad. Perceptive as always. Nothing you need to worry about. But you're worried. Jae-won looked down at this small, sharp boy. I'm careful. There's a difference. They drove home in Jae-won's reinforced sedan, security vehicles ahead and behind, through a city that suddenly felt full of threats instead of opportunities. At dinner, Jihu pushed his food around his plate, thinking, What if we left? He asked suddenly. Jae-won set down his fork. Left where? The city? Your business. All of it. Jihu looked up. What if we went somewhere no one knew who you were and you could just be our dad? Jia's eyes went wide with hope. Like a normal family? The longing in their voices was a wound. It's not that simple, Jae-won began. Why not? Jihu pressed. You're in charge. You can choose. I have responsibilities. To strangers. People who hurt other people. Jihu's voice cracked. Don't we matter more than them? You matter more than everything. Then prove it. The challenge hung in the air. Jae-won looked at his children, these small brave souls who'd already lost so much, and felt the foundation of his empire crack. What if I could build something different? He asked quietly. Keep you safe, but change what I do. Make it about helping people instead of controlling them. Can you do that? Jia whispered. I don't know. But I could try. Jihu's expression was too old, too knowing. Trying isn't the same as doing. No, but it's a start. That night, after the twins were asleep, Jae-won called an emergency meeting of his inner circle. I'm restructuring everything, he announced to 6 shocked faces on video call. We're getting out of anything that hurts people. Protection becomes actual security services. Shipping becomes legitimate trade. We go clean. Boss, that's impossible, I know. Dangerous, I'm aware. But I'm doing it anyway. Jae-won's voice was steel-wrapped in certainty. My children deserve a father who doesn't have blood on his hands. Figure out how to make it work. And Chen? Jae-won's eyes went cold. Chen threatened my family. That debt comes due before we go legitimate. Set the trap. I'll handle the rest. He ended the call and sat alone in his office. Architect of an empire built on fear, planning its transformation into something worthy of the children sleeping upstairs. Outside, the city pulsed with violence and opportunity. Inside, a monster tried to remember how to be human. And in between, 2 4-year-olds dreamed of a father who chose them over everything. The trap closed on Chen 3 months later. District 9 warehouses, just as planned. Chen's people had settled in, moved operations, committed resources. They thought they'd won territory from a weakened king. They were wrong. Jae-won didn't attend the operation personally. That part of his life was being delegated, piece by piece, to people he trusted to handle the ugly work while he built something cleaner. But he watched through secure feeds as his team moved with surgical precision. No deaths. That was the new mandate. Just systematic dismantling of Chen's expansion, property seizures, financial pressure points activated all at once. By dawn, Chen had lost everything he'd gained and more. The message was clear. Jae-won's mercy had limits. His children were the line no one crossed. His underboss called as the sun rose. Chen wants to negotiate. Tell him I'll consider his surrender when he's ready to beg properly. And the restructuring? The legitimate operations? Jaewon looked at the twins' bedroom door. Still closed, still peaceful. How's the progress? 3 shell companies established, 2 legitimate security contracts signed. The shipping operation has clean regulatory approval pending. We're moving faster than expected. Not fast enough. Double the pace. I want to be out of the dark money business by the time my children are old enough to understand what I used to do. That's ambitious. That's fatherhood. He ended the call and started breakfast. Pancakes. He'd gotten good at them. The twins shuffled in 20 minutes later, Ji-hoo rubbing sleep from his eyes, Gia dragging her favorite stuffed elephant. "Morning, Dad?" Gia mumbled, climbing onto her chair. Dad. The word never got old. "Morning, baby. How'd you sleep?" "Good. Dreamed about Mama." Jaewon's hand stilled over the stove. "Yeah? What was she doing?" "Smiling. Telling me you were doing good." Gia accepted her orange juice. "Are you? Doing good?" "I'm trying." Ji-hoo snorted softly. "You say that a lot." "Because it's true a lot." Jaewon served pancakes. "But I'm also doing something new. Want to hear about it?" Both children perked up, curious. "I'm changing my business, making it help people instead of hurt them. It's going to take time and it'll be hard, but—" "We can help," Ji-hoo interrupted. "I'm good at organizing things. You're 4, so I can still help." Jaewon looked at his son, this fierce, brilliant boy who wanted so badly to matter, and felt his heart crack open a little more. "Okay, you can help me plan the new security company, figure out how to keep people safe." Ji-hoo's entire face lit up. Purpose, belonging, a place in his father's world that didn't require him to become a monster. Gia bounced in her seat. "What about me?" "You," Jaewon said, tapping her nose gently, "are going to help me remember why we're doing this. Every time I get tired or scared or want to go back to the old way, you remind me what matters." "Love matters," she said seriously. Mama said, "Your mama was right." They ate breakfast together. 3 people who'd been strangers 6 months ago, now something closer to family. After school drop-off, Jaewon drove to a place he'd been avoiding, Minseo's apartment. It had sat untouched since her death, preserved like a museum to a life cut short. He had the keys. They'd been in her effects from the hospital. But walking through that door felt like stepping into grief he'd been too busy to fully process. He went anyway. The apartment was small but warm, decorated with colors that sang and photographs that captured joy. Minseo smiled from a dozen frames, holding infant twins, laughing at the camera, living a life Jaewon had missed entirely. He found the box under her bed, just like the letter said. Inside, photo albums chronicling the twins' entire lives. First smiles, first steps, birthday parties thrown on tight budgets, videos of Minseo reading to them, singing to them, telling them stories about a father who would come back someday. She'd never stopped believing in him, even when he'd stopped believing in himself. At the bottom of the box, a thick envelope, his name on the front in Minseo's handwriting. He opened it with shaking hands. Letters, dozens of them, dated across 4 years. Letters she'd written to him but never sent. He read them all. "Dear Jaewon, the twins kicked today, both of them at once. I think they're already fighting for space. Dear Jaewon, they're here. A boy and a girl. Perfect. Terrifying. I wish you could see them. Dear Jaewon," Ji-hoo said his first word today. More. Of course it was more. "He's your son. Dear Jaewon, I'm sick. The doctors are using words like aggressive and terminal. I'm scared, not of dying. Of leaving them alone. Dear Jaewon, I'm teaching them about you. The good parts. The man you could be when you weren't busy being the man you thought you had to be. I hope someday they meet that version. Dear Jaewon, this is probably the last letter. My hands don't work so well anymore. If you're reading this, it means Sarah kept her promise. It means you found them. Please love them enough for both of us. Please be brave enough to let them love you back. Always yours. Minseo Jaewon sat on the floor of that small apartment and cried. For the woman he'd loved and lost. For the years he'd missed. For the courage it had taken her to raise their children alone while dying. For the grace she'd shown him even when he deserved none. He cried until the grief ran dry, leaving something clearer in its wake. Purpose. He gathered the box, locked the apartment, and drove to his lawyer's office. I need to set up a foundation, he said. Healthcare for single parents, education funding for kids who've lost parents to illness. Whatever Minseo needed and didn't have, I want to provide for others. His lawyer blinked. That's quite a shift from your usual business. Consider it a new investment, in the kind of legacy that actually matters. The paperwork took 3 hours. By the time he finished, he'd committed resources that would have funded a dozen illegal operations into something legal, lasting, and good. Minseo would have been proud. He picked up the twins from school personally, as always. Ji-hoo emerged with a painting, a house with 3 stick figures holding hands. For you, he said, shy suddenly. It's us. A family. Jaewon took the painting like it was the most valuable thing he'd ever held. Because it was. At home, while the twins did homework at the kitchen counter, Jaewon hung the painting in his office, right next to the map of his empire, a reminder of what he was protecting and what he was becoming. That evening, Gia climbed into his lap during their nightly reading time. Dad? Yeah, baby? Are you happy now? The question was simple. The answer was complicated. He thought about Minseo's letters, about the empire he was dismantling and rebuilding, about pancakes and braiding hair and bedtime stories, about loving 2 small humans more than he'd known was possible. Yeah, he said finally. I think I am. She smiled and settled against his chest, satisfied. Ji-hoo looked up from his book. Mama said happy people change the world better than powerful people. Your mama was a smart woman. She said you could be both, happy and powerful. If you picked the right kind of power. Jaewon looked at his children, these small, fierce souls who'd transformed him from crime lord to father, and understood what Minseo had known all along. Real power wasn't controlling the city. It was this. Bedtime stories and homework help and being someone his children could be proud of. I'm working on it, he said. Ji-hoo grinned. We know. That's what trying means. Outside, the city pulsed with the old empire's dying gasps and the new one's first breaths. Inside, a family existed in the warm light of evening, imperfect, healing, and impossibly whole. Jaewon had built an empire on fear. He was building a legacy on love. And for the first time in 4 years, the choice felt right. The twins fell asleep during the second story, curled against him like they'd always belonged there. He carried them to bed one at a time, tucking them in with a tenderness that would have shocked his enemies. In Ji-hoo's room, he whispered, I'm proud of you. In Jia's room, he whispered, Your mama loved you so much. In his own room, he pulled out Minseo's final letter and read it one more time. Try. He was trying, every single day, and slowly, impossibly, it was working. The end.